Coming up, track and field athletes set some powerful platinum marks. Alex Heinert's here to deliver all the highlights, plus reveal the first coaches poll of the season.
And Jody Norstedt will tell us about a unique track meet in Fargo. Plus, you'll get us up to date on baseball and softball across North Dakota.
All that and more coming up right now on Varsity Sports. And hello and welcome to Varsity Sports alongside Jason Andera. I am Jay Elson. Our team, of course, includes Alex Heinert and Jody Norstedt up north. And we're all together getting set to get you up to date on the high school sports scene around the region.
Sounds good. Let's start the show out with Alex Heinert. He's going to talk about some of the highlights over the track and field scene over this past week. Plus, we've got some big news out of West Fargo. Alex?
Thanks, guys. Yes, big news indeed. It's not even May yet, and we've already had our first all-time state record fall in 2017. West Fargo's Akili Moten is now the all-time North Dakota prep record holder in the shot put after her throw of 49 feet 9 inches on Friday at the Davies Eagles Relays in Fargo. Moten, a two-time defending state shot put champ in Class A, was ranked third all-time entering the weekend with a personal outdoor best of 47.4. She's now moved past former Red River and Stanford star Patty Perper in the North Dakota record books by 4 inches. Here's what she and head coach Darren McKinnon had to say about the accomplishments.
It felt good, getting across the ring and everything, and I felt it come off my hand right, and it just, it's just that feeling you get when you know something good's about to happen. It was definitely one of my goals this year, but my main goal for this year was trying to improve. When it happened, I just kind of felt it, you just kind of knew, it was one of those throws.
Achilles, she's a very talented, gifted young lady. She's had a very good career here at West Fargo, and she's really kind of been building towards that over the last number of years. So I'm not surprised by it. I just want to see how far she really can go.
Congrats again to Akili, who again could very well be the all-time record holder in the javelin as well before all is said and done. She's just 5 inches off the all-time mark in that event. We'll have a little more from the Eagles relays later on in the show as Jody Norstedt will bring you an overview of the uniqueness of that meet. But first, a couple of big-time meets to get to in the state capitals of both North and South Dakota, starting in Pierre at the American Legion Relays. Friday's meet at Hollister Field, always a showcase of some of the best athletes across South Dakota in A and AA, and this year was no exception, starting with Rapid City Central's Michelle Johnson in the high jump. The defending state champ wouldn't clear 5.8 like she did a few weeks back, but there's nothing wrong with a 5.6 clearance for the victory. Johnson's cobbler teammate Sage Hagan was also making waves Friday. He goes 45.2 on his final attempt to win the triple jump by over 3 feet. He's the only jumper in the Dakotas to break the 45-foot barrier so far this season. Speaking of breaking barriers, how about Trent Frankham of Huron? His previous PR in the pole vault was 14.3, and he ups that to 15.2 on this clearance. That is platinum worthy and a top 10 mark all time in South Dakota. To the track now, where the state's best hurdlers were on display, starting with Elizabeth Schaefer of Rapid City Stevens. The 3-time state champ wouldn't lower her platinum times in the hundreds or the 300s, but she'd come close in both, winning each race in comfort. There was nothing comfortable about the battle Central's Antonio Pierce had all day with Brandon Valley's Josh Donahoe. The two went neck and neck in the 110s, with Pierce just getting the nod in a platinum time of 14.88, 200ths ahead of the Lynx Jr. Pierce would also just edge Donahoe in the 300s as well to complete the hurdle double. One of the only triple winners on the day was Brandon Valley's Krista Bickley. The all-time state record holder in the 400 would lower her platinum leading mark in that race with a 56.05 clocking Friday. She'd also pick up a win in the 200 as well over a loaded field and would anchor the Lynx to a win in the 4x2 as well. But as good as Bickley's day was, no one had a more prolific afternoon in the capital city than Cameron Kyle of Winter. The future SDSU Jackrabbit would take on all comers in the 1, the 2, and the 4 and come out on top in each race, then route to a sprint sweep. All in all, a statement day to remember for the Winter senior. From one state capital to another on Friday afternoon as the Bismarck Community Bowl hosted the boys-only Kiwanis meet. No shortage of WDA talent on display, headlined by Century's Levi Rocky in the field. He takes the shot put with a 50-11 toss and then finishes second in the disc to teammate Nathan Kraft, with both going over 152 feet. Elsewhere, Austin Wolf of Legacy, 5th at state a year ago. He's poised to move up this season. He takes the high jump with a 6'4 clearance, one of the many reasons why we're so high on the Sabres this season. On the track, big day for Williston, starting with Dominic Martinez. He goes 15-18 for the win here in the 110-meter hurdles. But while Martinez would get bumped off the top platinum spot by Antonio Pierce down south, his Coyote teammate Leif Everson would make sure Williston was still represented on the list. The Boise State commit would crush his 800 Friday afternoon, going 156.44, the first in the Dakotas to go under 157 this spring. The other platinum mark set Friday in Bismarck, a familiar name at the top of the leaderboard. Logan Goheen of Minot was 3rd at state last year as a sophomore in the 400. He'd go 49.77 on Friday for the Dakota's first sub-50-second quarter mile of the season. You saw a number of platinum marks go down in those highlights over the weekend, but those weren't the only top marks that went down around the region. Let's go to the leaderboard, starting on the boys' side. And on the track, just like last week, we've got an almost entirely new list this time around, with 5 of the 6 new times set on Friday in Bismarck, Pierre, or Fargo. In the field, how about Class B in South Dakota? Matt Campbell, Austin Eppert, and Alan McDonald all representing the small schools well with the top shot, disc, and high jump marks respectively so far this year. Plus, look at that pole vault line. 3 guys at 15.2, each of which now rank top 10 all-time in their respective states. On the girls' leaderboard, not nearly as much movement this week, as Maddie Shirley Fairbairn is the only new face to speak of. It should be said, though, the platinum mark in the mile from last week was 5:12. By my count, 5 athletes, 5, ran under that on Friday or Saturday, with 4 coming from North Dakota. A ton of talented distance runners in the fold this year. In the field, Whitney Scott has taken over sole possession of the pole vault lead with an 11.4 clearance on her home track at the Watsomo Relays Friday. And then there's Akili Moten again. She posts the 4th all-time individual record in North or South Dakota since we started doing the Platinum Awards 3 years ago. What a time to be a track and field athlete in the Dakotas.
We move from individual success to team predictions. Next, when Varsity Sports returns, you're going to hear who the coaches think will be taking home the hardware at the state meets in May in this year's first edition of our track and field coaches poll.
Varsity Sports on Midco Sports Network is presented by Mitchell Technical Institute and Farmers Union Insurance Agency.
And welcome back to Varsity Sports. Let's head it right back up north now to Alex for more track and field coverage. He's got our first look at what the track and field coaches think about this year's team races. Alex?
Well, it's a novel concept, right? Why not let the coaches that see these teams week in and week out tell us who they think are going to be atop the podium at the end of the season? We rolled out our first coaches poll last April and did another one last May, a few weeks before the state meet. And the coaches in the state's biggest classes proved to be pretty accurate with their choices. Time now to check in on their opinions for who the top teams are this year, starting in South Dakota. With AA girls and at Sioux Falls Lincoln emerging as the coach's choice to repeat as champions this May, the Patriots picked up every first place vote but one as they in Brandon Valley finish as the clear-cut top 2 teams in the state. Central and 2015 champion Stevens are a fair distance back in that next tier, while Yankton just sneaks into the top 5 over a resurgent O'Gorman for that 5th spot. It's a similar story for the AA boys. No surprise that Lincoln has been tabbed as the overwhelming favorite to repeat. Jim Jarofsky's Pats rack up almost twice as many points as second-ranked Rapid City Central. The Cobblers and third-ranked Brandon Valley, by the way, unranked in both polls last year. They finished 11th and 8th, respectively, at state in 2016. Good to see a little revitalization from those 2 programs this spring. Watertown, by the way, ranked 4th. But if you remember, the Arrows didn't get a lot of respect in last year's April poll, and they ended up finishing 2nd at state. Just something to think about there. To North Dakota, where the coaches feel a repeat is on the cards in Class A girls for Fargo Davies. The Eagles earned their first state track title last May, and now they've got their first ever #1 ranking, a testament to how much talent across the board Rory Beal has at his disposal this season. Bismarck High and Century finish a fair distance back of Davies as those 2 flip spots from their podium finishes last year at state. Red River and Legacy round out the top 5. That brings us to the A boys, the only class in either state where the coaches did not pick a repeat champion. This was the tightest vote of any class, but the upstarts from Bismarck Legacy get the nod as the #1 boys team in North Dakota. The Sabres and two-time defending champs Century collected every first and second place vote available, but Legacy's 3 extra first place votes end up being the difference. Congrats to Chris Clements and company on their first ever #1 ranking. Minot and Bismarck were a distant 3rd and 4th, with Red River the best of the rest. Congrats again to Lincoln, Davies, and Legacy, your #1 teams in North and South Dakota. We'll check in with the coaches right before the state meets to see how much their opinions hold or change in about a month's time.
All right, thank you, Alex. Stay tuned. When we come back, more track and field coverage. Relays are always exciting, but what about a meet that's built entirely on relays? Jody Norstedt has more on that when we come back. And welcome back once again to Varsity Sports. We continue our coverage of the track scene tonight with a unique event at Davies High School in Fargo that is certainly growing in popularity. For more on that, we make the exchange, handing the baton to our own Jody Norstedt.
Thanks, guys. For track and field high school athletes, meets can get a little bit monotonous. So anytime you can spice things up to get them engaged a little more is a good thing. The Davies Eagles feel that they've done that with the Eagle Relays, an event that's in its 4th year that's really a track meet with a twist.
It's about speed.
Get out, Al, go!
Strength, competition.
Good job, run it. Get up tall, Carson, get up tall!
With a dash of uniqueness.
This is a meet that many teams and many athletes look forward to coming back to each year.
With the relays, it's more of something to have fun, kind of a change of scenery.
Davies head coach Rory Beal
How's it going?
has taken the baton
Good leg, Cynthia.
and ran with the idea. The Eagle Relays meet is based off of a true team scoring format, so everything is scored like a relay, meaning field events and other non-relay races are awarded points based on the best collective team performance in the event. So basically, depth is more important than having a couple of superstars.
I think it's really important that every person knows that they benefit the team in one way or another, so it's really nice that they draw that attention to this meet like that.
We had a boys head coach before, his name is Paul Lean. We both used to coach at Fargo South, and the boys were at a meet in Stillwater one year, and it was like this. And Minnesota has a true team meet where everybody matters. North Dakota doesn't, so this is our chance to make sure that we can bring our team together, where the third person isn't just running for a personal best, they're running to help be part of the cumulative time for that event.
While relays might seem simple to the outsider, Davies standout sprinter Rose Gay knows they can be a challenge.
If you're not disciplined and you leave too early, then it's like bad and you don't like get the baton within the exchange zone. But if like you know like what you're doing and like you've done it before, then you're disciplined and you know when to get it and when not to leave and when to stay.
The biggest spectacle of the Eagle Relays has to be the shuttle hurdle relay, with action going back and forth on the front straightaway. And in one case, an enemy became an ally.
Not all teams have 4 competent hurdlers, and Grand Forks Central had a good boy, but they only had 1. And he's a state qualifier, and we want to make sure he didn't miss the chance to run the 100-meter 110 hurdles. So he jumped in with Cheyenne, and I think that's a pretty awesome part of it.
And it's another reason this event is such a big hit
It's a beautiful day
for the track and field
It's a
community.
little more relaxing when you go someplace else and they put the meat on, but we're enjoying it, hey? Yeah.
As for the results, Red River took the boys' crown with 128 points. Davies and West Fargo round out the top 3. Davies cruised to the girls' title. Take a look at this, though. Just 4 points separated 2nd through 4th, with those spots going to Cheyenne, Red River, and West Fargo. What a fun event to be at. Just ahead, we run the bases and take a look back at some of the big-time matchups that had the prep baseball scene buzzing this past week. Welcome back to Varsity Sports. It's time to put on the glove and catch you up to speed on the best baseball and softball teams in the state of North Dakota. And I want to begin by spotlighting 2 teams in my power rankings, Cheyenne and West Fargo. And I know what you're thinking at home. Wow, way to get creative, Jody, with the old-fashioned rivalry, West Fargo and Cheyenne. But take a look at these defensive highlights and you'll understand why these 2 teams are state title contenders. The battle for bragging rights in West Fargo took center stage on Thursday, and in Game 1, pitching and defense were the name of the game.
Take a look at some of these web gems, all from this same game. Packer catcher Jacob Johnson guns down Hayden Reynolds at second for the out. West Fargo scored on a bases-loaded walk in the second, but great defense ends the inning. Cheyenne's Christian Kuntz makes the diving stop and flips it to Denver Blinn for the final out. How about some more good defense? Cheyenne trying to get a rally going, but Tanner Zepeda makes an outstanding diving catch between first and second base. Now this might be the best defensive play of them all. Kuntz fields it barehanded and throws a strike to first to beat the runner. As you could imagine, it was a low-scoring game. West Fargo pitcher Ryan Barrasso was a big part of that. The junior right-hander allowed just 1 run on a solo homer, surrendering just 3 hits while striking out 8 in 7 innings. The tension of a 1-all tie in the 7th inning snapped when the Packers scored the winning run on a bases-loaded hit-by-pitch.
That was one of those games where you hope a lot of the young players were watching to see how great defense is played. Meanwhile, in Game 2, the Packers took it to the Mustangs in a 10-0 final. That is what has vaulted the Packers up into the number 1 spot in my power rankings. Get this, over the last 8 games, West Fargo has allowed only 7 runs, including 4 shutouts. Unreal numbers. Dickinson drops to 2 after splitting with Minot. Midget senior Kendall Jones tossed a 1-hitter in Game 1 of that doubleheader. He's a gamer. Century stays at 3. North and Minot round out my top 5. Cheyenne is on the outside looking in the updated rankings after suffering 4 straight losses. Now to Class B baseball, we got out to see the number 1 team, Thompson, take on a strong Hillsboro Central Valley team. The Burros made a splash early. Kyle Henningsgaard, the hero from the state champion basketball team, drives in Colton Anderson for an early Hillsboro Central Valley lead, but Thompson answers back. Hayden Schwabe slices it down the left field line to plate Braden Amborn. Then it's Schwabe picking up a pair of strikeouts on the mound. He's one of the best in the state. This game was tied at 2 in the 6th, but the Tommies pulled away for the 9-2 win. That's why the defending champs remain number 1 in my power rankings. Kindred Richland sticks at 2 after a couple of close victories over rival Central Cass. No changes in this top 5 because nobody has lost. The Vikings will be challenged by Northern Cass and Central Cass early next week. Those will be some games to keep an eye on, along with Grafton visiting Park River Fortville Lincoln on Tuesday. In Class A softball, West Fargo jumped the border this past week and played 4 Minnesota teams, winning just once. But a good loss, if there is such a thing, falling to defending Class 4A champ Chanhassen by the slimmest of margins, 1-0. So I'm not penalizing them for playing that top out-of-state competition. Dickinson had some trouble, but the Midgets stay in second. I bumped Century up to 3 after splitting with the Midgets and sweeping Williston. Legacy is in for the first time after splitting with both Dickinson and Minot. The Sabres have earned a spot. In Class B, the top 5 remains the same. Kindred Richland had a nice 9-0 win over number 5 Grafton on Friday. The Spoilers actually lost twice, dropping their record to 2-2. But those 2 losses are to, of course, Kindred Richland and Central Cass. So I'm going to give them the benefit of the doubt and keep them in my power rankings. But Watford City, Thompson, Northern Cass, a lot of teams are nipping at their heels right now. We'll see what happens this week. For some extended notes on our North Dakota baseball and softball power rankings, go ahead and visit the blog on midcosn.com. Feel free to weigh in on the discussion. Jay and Jandy, back to you.
All right, good stuff, Jody. Stay tuned. We're going to take a look at the unbeaten teams in South Dakota baseball. And Jandy's also going to tell you who has a chance to stay perfect. That's coming up next.
Varsity Sports on Midco Sports Network is presented by Mitchell Technical Institute and Farmers Union Insurance Agency.
Welcome back to Varsity Sports.
All right, that was the senior class from Langford High School, so thank you for that. All right, Jandy, let's get back to business now. Let's talk some baseball. Big topics in South Dakota high school baseball specifically. Now let's start with the undefeated teams this year. Sioux Falls Roosevelt is 15-0. Pierre is at 4-0. Dakota Valley and Lennox in Class B both undefeated as well. Which of these teams, in your opinion, have the best shot to finish out the regular season unbeaten?
Well, first of all, I don't care if you play just the 10 games or 4 games like Pierre or 30 games. It's hard to go undefeated. But for the most part, they've played that part of the most dominant team in the league very well. And it really comes back to their pitching staff. A very solid staff, the best middle of the order that anybody has in spring ball. However, it's hard to stay unbeaten. They've got some really big tests coming up. Brandon Valley, Watertown, Brookings, Mitchell, all coming up soon, plus some rivalry games with O'Gorman, Harrisburg, Lincoln. So a very tough path for them to stay undefeated. So while they might be the best team in the league, it's going to be really hard. Pierre, on the other hand, they don't get as many games in. They've got some tough games coming up as well. They've got Harrisburg coming up this weekend. Winter, who they've already beaten in a couple close games, coming up. Mitchell, Brookings. So it's going to be really hard for them to stay unscathed as well. That brings us to Class B, where top-ranked Dakota Valley just survived 2 one-run games last week, and their real only hurdle left is Vermilion next week. Lennox still has tests with Canton and Sioux Falls Christian, and next week they play a game against McCook Central, another team that started out 5-0 on the year. So really, it's too early for me to say any of these teams have a great shot of going unbeaten in the season. But if you have to press me and I have to pick one, I'd say Dakota Valley probably has the best chance just having to beat Vermilion next week to stay undefeated on the regular season.
All right. Last week you gave us a list of your top pitchers in the state. How about hitters? Who are the most feared hitters in South Dakota?
Well, I'm not up for ranking the top hitters. There are so many good hitters. It was tough enough to come up with that list of pitchers. However, let's name a handful of some of the best. Gus Riddell comes to mind.
Right.
He set the record as a sophomore.
Also on the pitcher list, by the way.
He's on the pitcher list, but as a sophomore, had the highest batting average for any Roosevelt Rough Rider in the wood bat era. So in this year as a junior, he's picked up right where he left off. Their catcher, Jack Simonson, also hits for a great average. We talked about Alex Gower of Watertown. Mason Townsend of Yankton, Carter Kratz and Billy Mount out of Vermilion. Both can put a charge into the baseball. I mean, we've seen Chase Corton do it. He's going to go on and play outfield at SDSU next year. He's a 400 type of hitter. Zach Poitz of Sioux Valley. He doesn't get a lot of pub, but he's one of the best hitters in Class B.
Thanks for watching, everybody. Enjoy your favorite events, weather permitting, and we'll catch you back here next week.